payables.
Yeah, so that one and that one go together, and this one go together.
But these are 2022 and 2023.
Yeah, those are old ones. Take those home.
Oh.
Put them with your files for 2021. This is 2022.
Guess I should have gathered them all up. Distributed.
Well, everybody threw them in their drawers, but I had all the extras.
Let's get
so I
started.
kept them up there.
And, I think we're at, the budget.
No, we are at the bills.
Oh, the bill. Oh, we paid?
No.
Nope.
We didn't pay.
We didn't pay the bills. That's when the call went off.
And that's why you have to stay afterwards and sign.
Oh, I do, don't I? Oh, okay. So if everybody read
I assume the 345 of the market was for diesel,
How much?
345.
Yeah, we had to buy diesel for the truck before I took it out. I'm surprised they got the bill here that fast though.
What was the city of Kendrick?
That's there.
Yeah, sweeper repair. Yeah, she finally billed it to us. It was way back in the end of November, beginning of December. That they had the bill, but she hasn't billed us yet, so.
Right.
I move to approve the payables for the month of December.
I'll second.
all in favor? Passes.
Out of curiosity, when you do the postmaster one, why do you break it down to 4 times like that?
Because of the fact that the water, water, sewer, and sanitation,
Oh, right.
those are like the postcards and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And then we mail stuff out for water and sewer, so.
You have it. Thank you.
You don't need the color.
That's usually what I do, those people. I'll refrain from this, I don't just read.
I don't like all those red letters.
That's just for me.
Red always meant bad.
We're ready for you.
Oh, I'm up?
You're up.
All right.
Make her short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
Please, yes.
That's like the third time I've heard that today. Well, first of all, I just wanted to introduce Kaylee Schneider. She's been our lead auditor with me for going on almost 7 years now. And got her CPA license this last year, and has really been kind of instrumental in coming down here and helping out Bonnie when we're not in working on the audit. But she's been kind of my right hand person in the audit, and so she's here to listen. I'm not starting off short and sweet, but so I just want to reintroduce myself, Tony Matson from Hayden Ross. Been doing the city audit here for a number of years. A couple things that I gave Bonnie before we kind of dive into the numbers. I have some required communication, our Indian governance letter I gave her, which talks about some of the upcoming accounting standards, talks about the significant estimates, which are in the financial statements, which really just come down to your capital assets and any long-term debt. And I guess the most important thing there is that we didn't have any disagreements with management. So that's always good. Bonnie is always ready for us to come down. She was emailing again this year. I'm ready. When you come? When you come? When you come? When you come? So we appreciate all her enthusiasm and getting us down here. This is actually the first field work that we try to make happen for ourselves and for the 9/30 audit season. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Get my monkey off my back.
We before we kind of dive into the number, we did continue, so there's been one audit finding in the financial statements, which really related to the financial close and reporting process that has been there in the last couple of years. It really is talking about just refining and defining the process of the year-end book closing. So figuring out all the accruals, tying all the sub-ledgers, or all the sort of the details to the number that we're putting in the financial statements. Going through the accounts receivable, the accounts payable, making sure the CAS application's being all done, making fixed asset adjustments. So those things are getting better. Bonnie's been doing a better job of those, and we're just continuing to train on that. We're still at that point that we're not quite to the point where I want to be finding off the financial statements. We've got a little bit more work to do. But with that said, like, those are the things that we're down here working with her on getting finalized and making those accruals so that we end up with a set of financial statements that are going to be fully accrual basis as required. So I don't really think it's something to worry about, or have concern over. It's something that we're working towards removing. That's just part of the process. So with that said, the financial statements, we did issue a clean opinion. So everything is fairly stated. This would be the time if you're like, okay, Tony, that's enough. You said enough. We're moving on. I can do that. But we do have a clean opinion, which means the financial statements are fairly stated. You do have two packages in front of you. You have one, the graphs, that's the one that we want to look at. I did tab a couple pages in the financial statements which were really just the budget to actual reports. So those in that larger package, if you did want to go back and look at those are the sheets that I kind of look at and just kind of gives you a better sense of where you guys budgeted and where your actuals were at. I have two tabs. It's been a week, but I believe the first tab is like your governmental funds, and the second tab is related to your water, sewer, and sanitation. If we can turn to the first graph that looks like this without all the handwriting. This is the net position analysis. So as part of your financial statements, one thing that we present that you don't really get this view all year long, but it's your net position, which is effectively showing the city as if it's a private enterprise. So things that happen there is you're going to see all the capital assets capitalized and depreciated versus just expensed when they're incurred, and you're going to see all the long-term debt. What I like to look at this, I just look at this just for some big picture concepts. That top yellow line is your net position, so effectively the equity of the city. Far right hand side there, ended the year with a total equity of $3,538,000. That was an increase of about $118,000 year over year. But more importantly, I look at the trend, right? If your net position is going down, it means like you're slowly eroding the equity of the city. If it's on its way up or staying stable, then you're generally adding to the equity, which is adding to the stability of the city. You can see that the net position has been on the rise, which is generally just equates to being in a more stable position. The next line down there is our net investment in capital assets. So part of that $3.5 million of equity is the value of your assets. That's end of the year at the $2,442,000, and again, it's the trend line. If you see that your net investment in capital assets is decreasing, that can be an indication that there's deferred maintenance, like you're not replacing things as they're wearing out. Your line is going up. You have that sort of bigger investment from 19 to 20. You see that kind of jump. That was when you had the ECWAG project and the water line that really increased the equity. And since that time, you have continued to invest in the city. This last year, some of your bigger projects were at about $127,000 spent related to the wastewater, at $50,000 of equipment that you guys purchased as well. So continuing to make the investments in the city. The third line down, the green one there, the net pension liability, I just like to bring this up to talk about where Percy is funded. Percy in fiscal year 21 was just over 100% funded. Fiscal year 22, it dropped to 83% funded, which is still, personally still a well-funded plan. It's obviously, it's sort of ebbs and flows with the stock market. Their year end is 6/30 of 22, so that was, this last summer was a fairly low point in the stock market, and it reflects in the overall net pension liability. But that number's been real stable for the city. 83% is lower than it has been, but I know it's already have been rising on that, but I just like to give you guys that update every month. And the last piece, that bottom line now, your outstanding debt. Total outstanding debt, which is really related to your bond payables, were $444,000 at the end of this last year. The city paid off about $59,000 worth of you paid off your 1993 water bond this last year, so that is done and off the books. And you have the 2004 bond left, which is expected to be paid off in fiscal year 34. So a few more years out. All right, enough with that position. Let's jump over and look at the general fund. I'll start like this. So, general fund began the year with a fund balance of $910,000. Revenues last year were $339,000. Expenses $392,000, with an ending fund balance of $857,000. A reduction of about $53,000 this last year, and we'll talk about what that was. Looking at your historical revenues and expenditures. Last 10 years, revenues have exceeded expenditures, 7 of the last 10 years. You will note on those top 2 lines, though, you'll see that the general fund has had losses in each of the last 2 years. We'll talk about the fiscal year 22 loss. The fiscal year 21 reduction, just as a reminder, was really related to the transfers to the water and sewer funds. So last year, the city transferred about $203,000 to help fund the water and sewer, which is obviously a reduction out of the general fund. But you're still in good shape. If we look at your fund balance on the next page, again, that top line is going to be your ending fund balance. You can see that high point in 2020 was, fund balance was at about $1,016,000. Ended the year this last year at $857,000. What does that really mean? I always like to compare it to a 2-month expenditure line, which is effectively a minimum fund balance recommendation. 2 months worth of general fund operating expenses is about $65,000. The city has $857,000. That represents about 26 months worth of operating expenses and fund balance. So the general fund is significantly funded and can handle those type of fluctuations that we've had the last 2 years. It's in good shape. If we look at the revenues a little bit closer, total revenues were $339,000 this last year. That was an increase of about $2,000, so not much in terms of revenue change. Taxes represented $165,000 of that, which was up roughly the change in your L2 this last year, so real similar to where it had been in the last year. Your intergovernmental revenue, so at $166,000. This was up about $3,000 year over year. However, fiscal year 20, your total intergovernmental revenue was about $75,000 less than each of the last 2 years. So intergovernmental revenue has been going up, and what is that? That's going to be like your revenue sharing dollars, your highway user dollars. Each of the last 2 years, we've seen a significant increase in those. I'm not sure if that's going to continue in the future, but that is definitely one of the reasons why you have that fluctuation there. Also included in intergovernmental revenue is the use of your ARPA dollars. All right, so the city had received about $129,000 worth of ARPA money over the last 2 years. $24,000 of it was spent in the general fund this last year. the general fund still has about 40,000, well, as of 9/30, had about $40,000 of unused ARPA funds. So that's still available for the general fund to use. Your other revenues were $4,450. Interest was $2,800, and your license and permits were about $741. On the expenditure side, total expenditures this last year were $392,000. That was a decrease year over year, $51,000. But remember, last year also had a $203,000 transfer. So, with that said, as we kind of go through this pie graph, you'll see your streets expense was about $207,000. That was up about $65,000, or excuse me, that was up about $142,000, up from $65,000 in the prior year, and that was really related to the chip seal project. So that was the primary reason that was driving the loss in the general fund this last year, chip seal. Safety expenses were $34,917, which were effectively somewhat the same as last year. Capital outlay is going to be some of your investment in fixed assets. You guys put the down payment on the flatbed and the sander and snowplow at the end of fiscal year 22, so that was part of those expenditures. Park expense was $17,000. Library expense was $2,800. And your general expenses were $76,000. And as I sort of had indicated along the way, what fiscal year 22 did not have, which 21 had, was a transfer to the water and sewer fund. So that did not happen. I want to jump over. We're going to go through the water, sewer, and sanitation funds real fast, faster than the general fund. Water fund total revenues last year were just over $200,000, and total expenses were $239,000. That led to a net loss of $39,000 this last year. Your revenues have been greater than your expenses in 3 of the last 10 years. Current year also included some fee increases. So your base fee for water went from $47 to $50. And you also have some incremental changes on your usage rates as well. So that's all leading to, even though you had a loss, when we kind of look at your available cash, you're going to see that it actually went up in the water fund this year. If we look at water fund net position, so your water, sewer, and sanitation are all what we call proprietary funds. So the accounting related to them is if they're private enterprises. So you're going to see all your capital assets capitalized and depreciated here, and any long-term debt's also going to be shown. So when we look at net position, which is showing at the $2,066,000, that's going to include all your infrastructure assets. So I like to look at that a little bit differently and say, okay, of the $2,066,000 of actual equity, $1,918,000 of that is really related to fixed assets. Okay, so the majority of that equity is really your fixed assets. The water fund has a restricted cash balance of about $111,000, and that's restricted for debt service payments. So that will be restricted until the water bond is paid off, and then that restriction will let up. You got of your equity, about 111 of it's restricted for the debt service, and that leaves unrestricted net position, which is really available for operations, about $36,000. Good news about that is that's up about $12,000 year over year. So, and it's the second year in a row that that's got up. An easier way to look at your water fund is we kind of look at your what we call your working capital. So on the next page, working capital is going to be all of your current assets minus all of your current liabilities. So it kind of gives you a liquidity sort of view of the water fund. And you want to have more current assets than current liabilities. Otherwise, where are you going to get the dollars to fund the actual liabilities that you have? We recommend having that ratio be about 1.5 months, or have 1.5 months worth of operating expenses in your working capital ratio. For the water fund, that amounts to about $29,900 is 1.5 months worth of operating expenses. The working capital was just eked out above that at $30,125 this last year. So, as we sort of alluded to, that unrestricted available fund balance or available equity has been growing the last 2 years, and it got back up above that 1.5 months this last year. So that's good. That's a better spot than you've been in the last couple of years with your water fund. And we're going to do the same sort of evaluation for the sewer and sanitation fund. Looking at sewer fund, that top line there, total revenues were $273,919. Total expenses were $103,388. Sewer fund had an increase or a net income of about $170,000. Now, that's a lot. It's really driven by the fact that you had about $145,000 worth of grant dollars come in. So you get those grant dollars in, they're coming in as revenue, but they're going out the door as fixed assets. So fixed assets aren't shown as an expense, they're shown as an asset. So that usually manipulates the way that your net income looks. If you were to pull that grant dollars out, the net income was about $25,000 in the sewer fund this last year. Sewer fund also had that increase in the fees from $32 to $37 a month this last year. Looking at net position, same sort of graph as we just looked at. Sewer fund net position has historically been negative. This last year it jumped up to a positive, end of the year with $143,000 of fund balance. Now again, that same sort of breakdown, of that $143,000, capital assets represented about $236,000. So, what does that mean? It means that your unrestricted is still negative, okay? So the sewer fund is not necessarily out of that hole that it's in terms of having restricted and available dollars. With that said, it did increase that unrestricted balance, went up about $37,000 this last year. So still in the negative, but making forward progress. Looking at the same sort of working capital analysis that we've done. Working capital, about 1.5 months worth of expenses is $12,912, almost $13,000 is kind of where you'd like to be. Your working capital is at negative $24,196. Still went up about $24,000 in the last, and you can see since 2018, when you guys started the fee increases, the working capital has been growing back up and getting closer to where you're at. If you were to ask the question, Tony, how do we get it above 1.5? I would make 2 recommendations. The first is that you have about $46,000 of ARPA funds, which you've allocated over to the sewer fund, but it's still there and available to pay for some expenses. So if during the year you decided to spend some of those ARPA dollars on sewer related expenses, those dollars would have a $46,000 effect on your working capital, right? Because those dollars were available to cover salaries, they're available to cover operations, they're available to cover governmental services. If that is an election made by the board, that's how those could be covered, and that would instantly bring it up $46,000. Now, you would no longer have any ARPA dollars to use, but that would be one way to bring up that working capital or that net position. The other thing you could do is, again, like you did last year, you transferred about $155,000 from the general fund to the sewer fund. A similar transfer, doesn't have to be 155, but the same sort of transfer, taking like, hey, we're going to fund some of the sewer with our general fund. The general fund has about 26 months worth of operating expenses, so it has the dollars that wouldn't impact the general fund in such a way that it would be out of money. But you could get that sewer fund, you could make a transfer that would get the sewer fund up above that number as well. So things to think about. The use of the ARPA dollars is, to me, easier than transferring from the general fund just because those dollars are already transferred over there. It's just a matter of saying, yes, we're going to actively use that on these sewer expenses. Sanitation fund. Revenues were $102,000. Expenses were $84,000. Sanitation fund had an increase of about $18,000 this last year. It's had increases. It's had an increase in its net position in the last 9 years. Your rates did increase this last year. They sort of followed suit with what Lehigh County is charging down here in terms of all the can-size rates. So you just follow suit with their increases. Net position, sanitation fund ended with $207,834 of net position. That's all unrestricted. The sanitation fund doesn't have any capital assets, doesn't have any debt. So the $207,000 is actually available for operations. And if we look at a working capital analysis on the next page, sanitation fund, 1.5 months worth of expenses is about $10,533. Sanitation fund sitting at about $207,000. So it's in good shape. Overall, takeaway. See, I still can't do this very fast, can I? I try. Still take forever. General fund is in good shape. You guys have 2 years worth of excess. That's a great spot to be. You saw continued progress with both the water and sewer funds this last year in terms of their equity, which is great. Sanitation funds historically been in good shape, still is. It feels like council and management are doing a good job. Any questions for me? Nope.
We thank you very, very much.
Yeah, well, it's, we like coming down doing the audit. Fun to come down here.
I just have a comment.
Yes.
I took my books home and read them, so here's your book back. I didn't lose them, I didn't.
Those are my extra copies.
Sorry you
I
had to
went
make
on
another
the-
run out here from last week.
Well, you know, it was for a good reason. So
It was, yes.
we'll- I'll come back every single time if that's what we need to do, so. I'm done. Just sit down. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys, I appreciate it. So, I don't have some extra questions. Maybe we can check. You guys can get questions. Okay. So, okay, later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay, so I'm back. After a couple months of going back and forth with ITD and various landowners in the city, we found a home for a LED motherboard. And it is currently, if everything goes right, it'll be in the reader board part of Juliaetta Market, where they say beer, chicken, etc. And so it'll be around the same type of deal as before. We're going to get it and have it for a subscription fee. Local businesses and government agencies, etc., nonprofits can advertise on it. And so what I need from you guys to finish the application would be a vote of support and that being read in the minutes so I can finish the ITD application and submit it for them.
So we just need that,
I'm sorry.
No, it's that yellow part. So, you know, where they put the hand letters on will be there.
yeah, so
You
you want
just-
to put it there on the store
It'll be on the store property.
property.
Yes.
You just need a motion from us to
In
provide
support.
I move to support the other site for the sign.
A second.
All in favor?
Thank you. Good job, Eric.
So some of you might know, some of you might not know, but between the last city council meeting and this one, it snowed and Ryan and I went up to Adams Lane. It was a sheet of ice. Even though it's a gravel road and it was plowed, it was still really slick. So we went up there with the tractor and a bucket of gravel, and we got all the way to the bottom, and I slipped and fell backwards, and my shovel came up and hit Ryan right in the side of the eye. So it broke his glasses, and it gave him a goose egg, and I said, we're done, you can go to the doctor. But luckily his doctor said that unless he was throwing up, he didn't have a concussion, so he didn't have to go into ER. So I told Ryan that we should open a workman's comp claim, or that the city could pay for his glasses since it happened on the job. So his former insurance paid $317.40, but the balance is $519.80. So I guess I'm asking if city council wants to pay for them directly out of whatever fund, or if, because I asked Bonnie if we should open a workman's comp claim, but we've had claims before, so maybe it's not worth opening a workman's comp claim, I don't know, but I would be appreciative if we could take care of that, since it was a complete accident and he's wearing his spare glasses with an all prescription.
Why would we not want to open a workman's comp claim?
I did.
So what's the issue?
They have not gotten back to me yet because it was over Christmas.
Um,
So, but I got a letter from them and I called them to find out what I needed to do to fill out. Nobody's called me back and they've left 3 messages now, so.
I think we should just kind of wait for that to go through.
Just wait for it to go through.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, we should have that's what it's for.
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for taking one for the team.
You thought Justin was a nice one.
Yeah, he was laughing, I was sick to my stomach, I've never done that to
You're the
somebody
one who brought
before.
it
I've never injured somebody before. Yeah.
So I had a lady from Kendra come in to tell me the other day at the post office that she's ran into a couple people on the bike path on their 4-wheelers and side-by-sides, in particular a white one. And so we're not supposed to have motorized vehicles on the bike path. But that particular person continues to do it, so.
Guess he thinks he can.
Because he thinks
he can. He told me.
The park taken care of and the bathrooms taken care of.
Well,
Oh,
not
no,
you.
It's a
you,
white
it's
A
one.
white one.
It's not you.
It's not you. Yeah.
It's not you.
It's a good thing I haven't been.
Yeah, no, no. That's
If
why I
I'm gonna
specified
say,
color.
If you guys don't want me
No,
out of it, then I'm done with it and you.
no, that's, it
No,
wasn't,
no,
it wasn't you.
No, no.
I go there every day.
Yeah, no, it's, a citizen of the town that shouldn't be doing it. So anyway, that's my staff report.
Do you want to tell them about,
I was gonna
meeting
let-
Kendrick,
About what?
the meeting?
Oh, the meeting, sure. So we went, Dick and I and Ryan went to the Sons meeting in Kendrick, which was a meeting put on by IRWA about, it means sustainable utilities, and basically it's for sewer. Paul is a sewer guy. But they had a consultant there who is from Boise, and they also had CETA there. And they are all on board, ready to help. Kendrick did choose Keller as their engineer last night. So now they have the same engineer as Juliaetta for their sewer project. There's still a lot of interest in us combining in some way, but it doesn't have to be the whole enchilada all at once. It can be a small piece of us just taking their effluent only for a while. It can be taking their whole sewer at some point. It can be a utility district. There's tons and tons of different things to, work out. But Kendrick has taken the first step on at least trying to get a solution. Whether that's with Juliaetta or not, they think Keller will be better able to help them come to some kind of answer. So it was very interesting, and there's lots and lots of grant funding available. So.
It's not going to be an easy project. Come down here, dig dirt between the hard spot and disaster. Because if they don't get the water, it's going to stop here, or they'll have to run this pipe all the way to the water. And if it can't go, if they go up over the hill, all the pumps that they have to use in order, because it goes like this, and so they have to buy pumps and keep them up. And if they go this way, they can pretty well flow it down there to the clear water. But it has to go to the clear water in order for them to meet all the specifications and all, and that is a very, very big expense. And if they stop here, then the expense is to put it down there, and then they can pay us for treating it and so on and so forth.
So Kendrick would pay us for treating it, is what they discussed.
So-
Yeah, that'll be retreated.
So they could pay us in cash. They could pay us in a water line, like free water from Kendrick. They could pay us in wages, offering another person. All of those things will be in a contract, or an understanding between the two towns of what's best for both. I mean, I don't think they're trying to be very careful about making sure that when it gets out into the broader community, that it's not rumors, that it's nothing is being forced upon anybody. I'm sure there will have to be public hearings and on and on and on.
Yeah.
But the win for us is their effluent won't be coming by our water plant. That's gone, so that would be nice. And our project is not being slowed down. We are moving full steam ahead. They can add a module later, a second phase, whatever, but we're still going ahead with our project to get it done as soon as we can. So it's just something to think about. I know everybody has personal feelings about it, and that's normal. So it's just
And they want to meet with us.
they will probably want to have some kind of meeting.
I talked to us today, and she would want to fix it for both councils to get together and discuss it.
Sorry.
Well, I wanted to thank you for taking some of the lights down, and I'll be getting hold of Robert from TDS as well to figure out a time we can get the stuff out of the trees.
I think we should leave them up. You see
Yeah.
how we still have a few houses around that
Yeah.
are still having them, it looks so nice.
Well, I know Robert's a fair weather guy for the bucket when he's volunteering, so I'm sure they'll be up till the weather's just a little bit nicer. Yeah, and I want to say I'm very thankful for the EMS services that we have. That's all I have.
So I heard and received a couple messages when they had the snow and the plowing, and I was just curious, what's the best way for the public, people from the public, to reach out to the city if it's after hours? as far as if they have concerns with their plowing or questions or requests?
If they call City Hall, the voicemail has Ryan and I's, both of our on-call numbers, our city cell phones. They can instant message me or I think Ryan directly on Messenger. They can leave a message here, which we check every day. This last snowstorm, that's all it would have taken was a phone call to me to say, hey, my road's slick, can you come hit it again, or anything. But it didn't go down that way at all.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
It all got done on Facebook without me even knowing about it until later.
Right.
Which was not classy at all.
And so the plowing policy, what Frank instigated and what was going on is we try to plow in the morning early so people can get to work. We don't plow during the day generally unless it's a blizzard and we're just cleaning up. But then we go back out before 3:30 to hit it again so that when people come home, then they're able to get home. So you guys are welcome to change or modify or contribute ideas or whatever, but that's kind of the rule that we've been following.
Maybe we should
So-
post that on the city of Juliaetta.
So, when that person said, oh, the city's just sitting there and saw me slide down the hill, well, we had just plowed since 4, I actually started at 4 that morning, till 10. 4 to 10, we plowed. And
Yes.
I was just out here, probably putting gravel in a dump truck or something and, went home to lunch and so, but if anybody calls and says, oh my gosh, it's slick, like Ryan and I went up to Adams Lane because we didn't know that it was obviously it got plowed, but it turned to ice. And, I'm more than happy to do anything.
There are other things.
I think you guys do an exceptional job.
You can't keep every street 100% slip proof. I mean, it takes time to plow them, sand them, and when it's in the wintertime and it's cold and slick, the streets are slick. It don't make any difference, I don't care where you're at. If it's out here on the highway or...
The only thing is when it starts to melt and then refreezes,
Yeah.
I don't know how to solve that problem because you just get a layer of ice under there and it just, more gravel. I don't know what else to do.
So residents should call the city hall and get those numbers on.
Yeah, if they have a direct problem, they can do that. And I think most people, the ones that have input, have my direct number.
Right.
So, my home and also the city cell. So, I'd be more than happy to do whatever.
Cool. And then regarding what Wendy brought up, so the mayor speaks to said guy on the white one, maybe you could mention something to him? Would that be the best route to go, that people are actually complaining about it?
Oh, I'm out plowing the same as Justin. I get out with the digger and I plow.
He's talking to Neil about driving on the bike path.
Oh, I can talk.
Perfect, that's all I think.
Well, I don't have anything.
Clifford? Oh, I'll bite into him. I don't have a problem.
We had elections and I'm the new fire chief. And Joe Dodge is the assistant fire.
Where's your badge? Let me see.
We expect full
We have no
dress at
proof.
council now, Clifford.
I left in my other
Including the
shirt.
hat.
Yeah, including the hat.
I do have,
Yeah, full dress next
yes I
council
do,
meeting.
but, oh, that was way, I don't think I could put it on, I think it might be a little small.
Since you're the new fire chief, you have mail in your mailbox.
Really? Really? Wow.
You go get it.
Ah. Okay. That's all I got.
Okay, Brian.
Alright, so Justin and I got the scrubber back, of course, got the chains put back on tight, and got the plow blade on, and everything's ready to go for if we have another snowstorm, so. I'll give you guys a quick update, so.
Did you get a chance to look where I told you that block heater might be?
No, I haven't haven't looked yet. I thought I saw a plug-in in there though.
That's what it would be, is a plug-in.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll double check. When I was coming back from, yesterday from Coeur d'Alene, the engine light came on. I was coming up the hill before Viola, and it didn't come off. So I talked to Dick this morning about it, I was gonna take it into the Ford dealership, but Ryan had a code reader, so he stuck the code reader on it, and all it said it was
Intake
the
something.
incoming temperature sensor was not reading it, or didn't read at some point. So he was able to just clear it with the machine, and now it's fine. So, because I didn't know what the code, it didn't know how to find what was
Right.
wrong.
Yeah.
So the internal,
Something about internal temperature of the intake
That's where the
sensor or
air
something.
comes
oh, so it's probably the
Yeah,
gas
so-
airflow sensor might have got a little something on it when they were maybe hooking something up for the spreader. There's a sensor right inside where the air box is,
Oh, is
that
it?
tests the air, so if it gets dirty, then it throws a code. So that might have been what it was.
You can take that out, they make a special can of mass flow sensor cleaner. That's all you can use, is spray on that cleaner.
Oh, really?
That, yeah, don't
Which
use
sensor?
anything else but
But
that.
which sensor is it?
I can show you.
It's in the air box.
Oh, okay.
Google it.
Yeah.
The truck got really good mileage. I don't know if you noticed that, but
I was
drove up
impressed.
and back and still had half a tank. I was like, whoa.
When I took it up the first time, I was impressed that it got better mileage than my Tundra.
It got better mileage than the city truck.
Yeah, it gets, yeah, and it's only gonna get better as it gets more broken.
Yeah.
I will say, not to throw him under the bus, but Frank Grosclose, initially when we first motioned to buy that, was like, what are you doing? And now he loves it.
Yeah.
Oh,
He
did
says
you?
it's the
Yeah.
greatest thing ever.
He did?
No,
No.
how funny. Takes Frank a while to kind of,
Well,
get into this.
he went and experienced it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just surprising how well it gets around. You know, the other one was a lot higher off you sat a lot higher off the ground, and you feel like your center of gravity is different. This one sits lower and it has four-wheel drive, and it just really gets around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was watching you guys set it up back up today.
Oh, sure.
Watching it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I moved to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?